advertising. Sadly, anyway. That's just kind of unfortunate the nature of it. It feels like, you know. I think I'm gonna wash this turd tomorrow too in the garage. It'll be one of the 3 things I do to it. Just kidding, I'll try to do more.
Get it running, wash it, drive it.
No, I plan on seeing if I can't get that tack wired up, because this tack requires a coil, and I obviously got an HEI in here. So I'm gonna try to put that in here. I'm actually gonna clean the inside out, wash the outside, get all the parts that I got sprawled all over the place, get those shorty headers on that I bought like, I don't fucking know, 6 months ago, something like that. Those on there.
What is this, like the first time in a year we've had this thing uncovered?
Well, it sat in the garage uncovered last, 2 years ago. No, yeah.
It's been sitting out here since before winter.
Yeah, it's been sitting out here since like October.
It's almost a year.
I think it wasn't under cover when I had it under the canopy.
Hey, they got a 3-wheeler.
But it's been sitting here a while. It's back. Mountain Dew Spark is back. So, since one of my favorite flavors of Mountain Dew is back, I figured, with a little car in the front doing a burnout, kind of sparked some motivation in me. It's motivation to work on a project I've had for 3 years. I got it in late 2018. November 2018, I think is when I got it. Maybe October. So I've had it a little while. And hang out at the end of the video, and I'll have a bunch more pictures kind of spliced in here and there and over there. Kind of like me explaining the things that I've done to the car and stuff like that. But for now, we'll cut around you guys my 1980 Volvo 262 Bertone. This is actually the first Volvo I've ever owned. I bought it for $400, and it had a 305 small block Chevrolet and a 700 R4 transmission in it on some Corona wheels that were covered in spray paint, and it said Chevlo on the center, which I think I got those in the trunk. But yeah, here she is. I think it had 160 or 170,000 on the odometer when I got it. It had been sitting since 2012, and realistically, it's still honestly been sitting since 2012. But I figured what we'll do is we'll do this kind of vice grip garage style and kind of start in the trunk and work our way forward on it. But first I got to take one more swig. Oh, so delicious. All right, so crawling back here. See, this thing's covered in dirt. It's very dirty. This is a little bit of a hint of what's powering it. Let's pop the trunk open. Ooh, these trunk seals have been sealed shut a little bit at a time. So here's what's currently floating around in the trunk right now, which is just a lot of random crap. So I got some trash bags in here, some exhaust stuff. Here's some VR1 racing oil. That is the engine oil for the actual engine itself. And I had some damper in there to try to keep some moisture held up. I'm struggling with that. I can probably pull this stuff out now. Yeah, it's literally just a cup of water. So let's go ahead and dump that out. Alright, that's taken care of. And what else is really in here? I don't think there's anything really super exciting. This is an air filter. I got a couple of mufflers right here. This is for some of the exhaust that's going on it. I think that's the other muffler right there. Just some cheap cherry bombs. That's actually from an episode of Engine Masters. And then some spark plug wire holders. And some other little stuff. Looks like I got a second. That one's, oh, that's leaked everywhere. That's nice. Well, I'm gonna throw this away now too. And yeah, here's what it said. Actually, I said Chevlo, but it says Chevo. Here's the old center caps on it, which I think they could probably be painted and be used again if I painted them silver or something. With some Jake stickers. Some other stuff. Ooh, extend your warranty free. Anyway, well, I think that's really all I got for the trunk. Nothing super exciting in here, but I think some of these parts in here will kind of give you an idea of what this thing's being powered by. So for now, oh, another way you can probably figure out is that powered by a Chevrolet. So let's move on to the inside. We'll kind of show you some of the stuff that's in here. It's been locked for a while. This thing sat beside my garage for a couple of years, along with sat in here for a few years. Sadly, it's been on the back burner for some time. That's the wrong key. That is the right key. All right. So, In here, we have lots of floor mats. I'm gonna get this out. Oh, look, another thing of damp rid. It's a good thing I put this in here. This probably took a lot of the moisture out of the air. All right, I'm gonna go dump this on the toilet too. Alrighty, back over here. It is a, more stuff. This can, oh, these are all really damp. But, I mean, they still smell like dryer sheets. I don't know if it got mice out or not, but. Alright, well, more dryer, more stuff. I really should just bring a trash can over here. This is gonna be part of this video is actually cleaning this out, so we're not gonna do that. But here's the interior on it. It's pretty nice. These seats are actually in really good shape, all things considered. For being a, however many year old car this is, it's in pretty good shape. Here's some headers for it. I actually have a different set of headers elsewhere. And there's some other random console pieces. I got the console all pulled apart because I'm going to be wiring up another tack for it. But it is a power windows, power locks car. And then the dashboard's a little bit cracked up. I got some hardware floating around on there. And the additional, this has all been pulled out. These are toggle switches for the fan and stuff like that. And I got, that's my tranny kicked out, or my tranny shifter cable, which is not actually hooked up right now. And so we'll make our way to the other side. Here's the front end of it. And these have Mach 1 wheels on it too. I think these are like 2003, 2004 only Mach 1 wheels. I picked these up on Facebook Marketplace for 200 bucks. Then I ended up getting a set of Toyo Proxies for 50 bucks on Marketplace as well. So yeah, here's the inside. It's definitely not the prettiest, but that's going to be one of the things I want to take care of is getting this thing vacuumed up and getting it really clean. I do have some OEM floor mats down there that I got from the Rusty GT that are going to be going in here. So, all this trim pieces are all falling off. But anyway, let's pop the hood. I'll show you the engine. There she is. This is a 1970 small block Chevrolet engine. It's a Gen 1 SPC. I think it has a truck motor per the casting thing on the back over there. And yeah, it's got a RPM air gap intake. It's got a Holley 4150 double pumper that's custom built for E85. The engine's roughly a 14-to-1 compression engine. It's 60 over, and the head and the heads, I should say, and the block have been decked quite a bit to compensate for the compression. And it's got dome pistons in it and a bunch of other stuff. I don't remember exactly what all the bullet points are and all the things that are in it, but it's a fairly well beefed up engine. This thing still has the braking oil in it, sadly. I got this thing running a couple years ago, and it's kind of just sat ever since. It's really honestly pretty sad. But this is going to be the year I finally get it running, hopefully. Finances and life pending, hopefully I'll get it running. These firewall braces I believe I got from Wagonmeister, and then it's got a set of Yoshi Fab chassis braces at the bottom down here. See them right there and right there. And another fun thing that happened as I pulled it into the garage is the rack and pinion started leaking, so that's wonderful. But yeah, here's the tranny cooler lines. I do eventually plan on putting AN lines on this. That'll be a project after it's actually been running a little bit better debugged. Same with the fuel lines and stuff like that. But I got a ton of stuff to do, a ton of stuff on it, so for now, I think that'll extend my walk around of it. I think I'm just going to start this video off by cleaning it up. I probably won't do any engine bay cleaning. I'm going to save that till after it's running a bit better and stuff like that and fixed up. And then I think I'll clean the inside out, clean the trunk out, get everything I got organized for it. I actually got some headers and stuff over there. And then I think I will give it a wash, do a few little odds and ends that I know it needs to get done to it, and then end this video with me talking about it. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment them, but I'm going to start wandering through and doing some cleaning, some stuff that I need to get done, and I will end the video with some pictures. So yeah, I guess we'll get moving forward now. Alright, beginning to wash. Got my buddy Lucas out here. It's actually the first wash of this car since I've owned it. It's actually the first wash of this car since I've owned it. Other than rain, which has been in the garage most of the time. They were fairly clean when I got them. I don't think they were that clean. Alrighty, well, we're finally wrapping up for the day, but look at this paint. Seriously, this thing looks amazing. Now, it might look amazing in the video, but when you really get up close to it, you'll see that the paint is really actually genuinely terrible on this car. There is horrible orange peel everywhere, and very obvious horrible rust and cracking Bondo, and I mean, it's just terrible in all honesty. But for a quick wash, quick wax, buff, the whole whatever, I don't know all detailing terminologies, it's far out of my pay grade, hence why I had somebody else do it. But man, I am completely blown away. I did not think this car would ever look this nice, ever. And yeah, I don't know what to say. I am blown away. I mean, look at these Mach 1 wheels. These things look gorgeous. Like, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words in all honesty. So I got to give a huge shout out to the company that came out and did this. The guy's name is Lucas, and he runs this company out of Grand Rapids called Lucid Detailing. He drove all the way out here from Grand Rapids today, and oh man, like, I just want to pet it. It feels so good, even despite like all the terrible orange peel, which the video isn't really there. It is. You can kind of pull it up right there. Even despite the horrible orange peel on this thing, man, it's so smooth. I don't know, I know he did a clay and some other stuff that's, again, above my pay grade. It'd be a great job for him. But if you're ever in the Grand Rapids area, or you live in the Grand Rapids area and you want a detail, hit that guy up. Just completely, I'm blown away. This car looks like $1 million right now. And honestly, the paint on this trunk, yes, this trunk right here feels better than the paint on the hood on this on the Celsior right now. So really, I should have got that done if I had more than 4 brain cells. But shit boxes, man, this is life. E85. So yeah, man, I'm stoked. We'll be back out here tomorrow, and I'm gonna start thrashing away. I got a bunch of stuff to do, so keep your eye out for some more videos of this thing, because I'm definitely gonna hopefully have some more here soon. So I'm gonna catch up on some sleep tonight, probably maybe do some editing on this video, and then hit the road or wake up early tomorrow morning and get out here and get thrashing on this thing. Hopefully before the heat comes. It's supposed to be like 95 degrees tomorrow, which is just perfect. Well, my favorite. But anyway, I'm going to cut now to me doing a little thing about me talking about this car and kind of the history of it and some pictures and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. At the very end of the video, I think I'll do the video that I have of me breaking the cam in when I finally kind of took a video of it running. So I might snip in a video of that at the end. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the next thing. Alright. Well, now I'll tell a little bit of a story about this car. And basically, how it went down was I got a text from a friend who knew I kind of always liked weird cars and stuff like that, and he was like, "Hey man, you want a Volvo?" I was like, "Man, I'll never say no to a cheap car. What do you got?" And he goes, "Well, it's not my friend's car, but it's been, or it's not my car, but it's my friend's car, and it's been sitting for like a decade roughly. He got it in on a trade a while back and was gonna put an engine in it, but it's got a what did he say it had? He said it was V8 swap, but I think he said it was an LS. And I was like, okay, what does he want for it? He's like, I don't know, pretty cheap. He basically wants nothing for it. And I was like, well, I guess I'll go check it out. Sounds good to me. So we drove out. The guy lived about an hour from me, maybe a little less. And so I drove out there and I met him out there, and I got there about 5 minutes before he did, and I saw this car sitting underneath a lean-to outside in front of the house. And I'm like, that's got to be it. And so I kind of walked around the car and I took some pictures, which I'll put over here, and started talking to my buddy when he showed up and was like, yeah, he should be sleeping, he works third shift. So I was like, oh, we'll knock on the door and talk with him. I was like, okay, sounds great. And knocked on the door. I didn't think he was showing up because we knocked for probably 5 solid minutes, and finally he came crawling out and was like, hey guys, how's it going? And he was like, hey, I'm here to check out your car. And so we kind of gave it a quick once around. I looked at the outside of it and opened the doors up and asked him what he knew about it, and he pulled out a paper, which I still have somewhere. I think it's inside my house somewhere. I'll see if I can't find it. Maybe if I do, I'll snip it into the video, but I'm pretty sure I can't find it. Either way, he had, the previous owner brought it to a shop, and they said the rear main seal was leaking, the oil pan was leaking, the carburetor needed some work, and it had a slipping transmission. So they quoted him like $4 or $5 grand or something like that, absurd to do all the work to it and things like that. And so he traded it off to this guy who I got it from, and yada yada yada. He never even transferred the title. It was all filled out and everything like that. But the car had a 305 small block in it, and a 700 R4 trans, and basically is set up mostly the way it is right now, other than the engine and trans have been gone through, and some fluids. But, and I did suspension and brakes. I'll get to that later in the video. But, after walking around and looking at it for a little while, I was like, oh, what do you got to have for it? And he was like, well, make me an offer. So I kind of just shrugged my shoulders for a second, looked at it, and I was like, I don't know, $400? And the guy went, yeah, sure. And I was like, well, I would have offered you less, I guess. Like, I didn't think he was going to just accept it. I figured he was wanting like $1,000 or something like that for it, which I don't know if I would have bought it for $1,000, but either way. So I called my buddy and was like, hey, I just bought a project car. It's a V8 swap Volvo. And he kind of laughed at me and was like, okay. He's like, I'll grab my trailer. So we went and grabbed his trailer, drove back out that night and got this car loaded up and pumped the air up because a bunch of the tires were pretty flat, and dragged it home to my place, and it sat beside the garage for probably about a week until I pushed it into the garage, and I tried to get it running. I couldn't get it started on my own. I dumped a bunch of gas in the tank and did a couple of things to it and hooked the battery up to it, and I couldn't get it started for the life of me, and it turns out the fuel filter was like super clogged. So my buddy came over and we bypassed the filter, and we basically ran into a pop bottle similar to this one, only it wasn't spark, it was just regular green dew, and it ran, surprisingly, and it sounded pretty nice. Like, the 305 was a fairly healthy engine, but it definitely leaked, because after it running for maybe 20 or 30 seconds in the garage, I had a couple of drips of oil on the ground, and the carburetor was puking fuel all up from the base of it and all over the place. The carburetor definitely needed some love, but it had this like a little 600 CFM metal rock, typical AutoZone style carburetors. I'd love to say I know what the model is, but I don't. And the 305 was just bone stock. I mean, iron heads, iron intake, nothing done to it at all. Had an HEI, that was the only thing that it had in it. Outside of that, it was, you know, stock water pump, just a large, tall water pump and stuff like that. But it had the radio that's in it right now, the transmission, the drive shaft, and a bunch of other things. And so my initial plan was to just pull the 305 out, do a full reseal on it, put a cam on it, and maybe an intake if I could find like a, you know, some sort of performance intake on Marketplace for $50 or $100 or Craigslist. I don't think I had a Facebook at this point, so I was using Craigslist. But, well, I had the motor still in the car, actually. I had a guy at work that was like, hey, I got a small block Chevy for sale if you're interested. It's a 350 that's 40 over. I was like, I mean, what do you want for it? He was like, I don't know, it's in pieces. It's got a broken piston in it. And so he's like, go over to my place and check it out. So I swung by one night and looked at it, and it had an RPM air gap intake. It had a forged crank. It had camel hump 202 heads. And what else did it have with it? Yeah, it was 40 over, a couple of little things, but it was all in pieces. They sprayed it with penetrating oil, so none of it was really rusty or anything like that. And it had been sitting apart. So supposedly what had happened is the previous guy messed the timing up, and the timing wasn't quite right. They blew a hole in the piston. So I offered him $150 for the engine, and he said yes. So I grabbed it, I brought it to a local machine shop, thinking, oh, it won't be very much money to get the engine built. It'll probably be like, you know, $1,000 or something like that. And it turns out I was wrong. It was about $3,000 roughly to get the engine built. But they had to fix a crack. They bored all 8 cylinders from 40 over to 60 over. They put dome pistons in it. They decked the head, they decked the block, they turned the crank. They put a new cam in. It's got an Elgin cam. I'll put the specs in like a list in the notes below, or maybe I can put the build sheet in here or something like that. But the engine's more built for torque. One of the things with compression was I was going to be, when they were building it, they talked with me about various pistons they could run, and they said I could run race gas if I wanted to be super expensive on it, or I could set it up for 93 or E85, which they really pushed me to the E85 route, and for good reason. I'm not like knocking the shop or anything like that. But they said E85 runs a lot cooler, it's a lot cheaper, you burn through it a little bit faster, but all you gotta do is get an E85 safe carb and fuel lines and a handful of other things, and it's super easy to deal with. You just gotta clean the fuel system out before the winter time, which I was like, well, that's not a huge deal. Like, I'm fairly confident I can take care of that stuff. So I had them go ahead and build it with the high compression, the way it's set up right now. And yeah, they cleaned it, painted it, a bunch of stuff. I actually brought the block to my work and I hot tanked it, and there was like 5 layers of spray paint on it. It was yellow, orange, black, red, I think. I don't know, I think I got a picture now, you can probably see it. I'll snip that picture in here. And, well, after that, I had basically had the engine built before I even had this 305 out of the car. So I pulled the 305 out and I threw that on Craigslist for like $200 or Marketplace or something like that. And yeah, because I joined Facebook because of Marketplace, because I couldn't find parts ever. since everybody apparently was on Facebook now. So I joined Marketplace, and one of the first transactions I ever dealt with on Marketplace was a guy that came and bought this, and he put it like a Monte Carlo or something, the old 305, and it runs good. So thankfully, I was very happy to see that the engine ran really well for the guy, and I warned him ahead of time it was leaking and stuff like that. But I only sold it for $200. Figured it runs and it has fairly decent compression. $200, can't really beat it. So while I pulled the engine and transmission out, me and my buddy Alex, my buddy Tony did, and we pulled it all out as a pair. And then I rebuilt the transmission myself, which was a little bit of a undertaking in and of itself. I had never really built an automatic transmission before, but I've done some manual transmissions, so I thought it can't be that hard. There's plenty of stuff on YouTube and how to do it, things like that. And the first time I built it, I sent it off and I had it ran on a dyno, and it had low pressure, but it ran good. And he said the shifting was a little bit soft, so he recommended I put a shift kit in it for what I wanted to do with it. I was like, perfect, that's totally fine, because I think I put a billet drum in it. I bought like a 400 horsepower rebuild kit. I think it had a billet drum, and it had a couple other little things. I don't remember what all was in there. It was like a Z-Pack 3/4 clutch and a bunch of other little things. So I did that, and I replaced the pump and put another pump in it. And when I replaced the pump, I put a shift kit in it. There was a different spring for the pump, and evidently I didn't seat that snap ring in all the way. So I sent it back to the dyno, and they ran it on the dyno, and it lost all pressure. He said it only made like 9 psi of pressure, which are supposed to be making, I want to say, in the neighborhood of 80 to like 120, maybe a little bit higher than that. I don't remember exactly. But sadly, with the pressure low, it smoked it. So my 3/4 clutch was burnt out and a bunch of other stuff. And so I took it all back apart again. I bought another Z-Pack and a bunch of more clutches and a bunch of other stuff. And I ended up shimming one of the packs, the 3/4 clutch pack, just a little bit tighter because it was a little bit on the looser side. And I heard back and forth. A lot of people said they shim it for a little bit less than I had it shimmed to, which was the factory specifications were for a 700 R4 manual that I found online. So I did that, and then I had a torque. I bought a torque converter for it. It's only like an 18 to 2300 foot RPM torque converter, and rebuilt the transmission again, and I put a different shift kit in it, and then I did a 500 boost valve and a couple of little things, and I'm pretty sure it's together right this time. I don't know. I honestly have only ever driven it in and out of the garage, so it does go into gear. I can confirm that, but I've never really gotten it past first and reverse. So, which, speaking of the first and reverse, I will grab the little linkage. This was the linkage that was in the transmission that was holding to the shifter in the car, which is kind of I mean, it works, but it only let me to go into second gear. Second, third drive, neutral, reverse, park. I was all I was able to do. I wasn't able to shift it onto the first. So through a Volvo page, I found a guy that had a low car shifter that was custom designed for a 240 that he had designed for a 700 R4, and I think he used that for a while before he switched to a manual trans. So I bought that for him, and I got it kind of in right now, but the cable's kind of been giving me problems, which is another one of the reasons why I had parked it, or kind of gave up on the project. There's a lot of reasons involved with that. A lot of little stuff. It's expensive. This is my first car I've ever built, even though I really didn't do engine mounts or anything like that. But what else exciting things happened with it? When I had it apart, when I had the engine and transmission out of it, I had it basically parked dead center in this garage for the majority of the winter time, because this is only when I had like 3 cars, which is different because now I have like 7 or 8. But I blew the whole suspension apart on it. I replaced the rear springs with IPD overload springs. I redid all the front suspension. I replaced the bearings. I replaced the pads, rotors, calipers on all 4 corners. I replaced the struts and inserts. I replaced the shocks. And I replaced the the strut hats and inserts. You don't replace the actual strut body. I replaced all the hard lines, all the soft lines. I replaced the tie rod ends. I replaced the ball joints. And what else did I do in the front end? I think that was about it. There's a few other things that I had intended on doing, but I never did. The control arm bushings. I bought the control arm bushings, and then I realized the control arm wasn't much more, and it was less work, but then I realized the bushings aren't that hard to replace, so I fought myself back and forth, and then I ended up not doing them. But I had it on the original Corona wheels that were spray painted black for the most of the time. They had Cooper Cobras in the back that were like a 225, and they had a 185 70 14 tire in the front, so it kind of had like a little bit of a, you know, I can't do it if I can do it with my arm very well, like a little bit of a rake to it, even though the front end sits sky high in comparison to the ass end of it. But that might be a coil cut problem that I fix. And So fast forward about a month, I've been kind of piecing stuff together, and I had the engine and the transmission, and then I got the Tercel, which is Spud, which has kind of been my baby for a couple of years now. I love that car to death, even though I don't drive it as much as I should because I got all these other projects that I'm working on. Poor car. And I bought Spud with plans on running out on my first ever Lemons Rally. And my initial plan was honestly to make the car just a really cheap, like get it going, have fun, do the Lemons Rally. If it dies, whatever, scrap it, who cares? You know, I don't care about the car much. Even though I love Tercels, this was $500. I flew out to Stanford, Connecticut and got it and drove it home 800 miles and it survived. It was slow, but it survived. And then one problem led to another, led to me end up rebuilding the engine, which cost a ton of money. I ended up selling a Mustang that I had, which was just a cheap N95, I think. It was I said 95 or whatever they are. It was like a 94 Mustang or something like that, the rounded ass end. It was only a V6 stick car. I bought it with intentions of kind of wanting to learn how to drift a little bit with it, but sadly that project I put on the back burner to finish this and the Spud's engine. And so I rebuilt Spud's engine, so the whole time this car was sitting here with my $3,000 engine dangling on an engine stand, and the transmission sitting on another engine stand upright because I had built it. And I went through that whole process, got through with Lemons Rally, and when I got home, or before I pulled the engine actually to rebuild it, hold on, I'm all out of order. I'm gonna have to trim this video up because it's gonna be really embarrassing to try to fumble through and listen because I'm really bad at telling stories. Anyway, so what I did after the Lemons Rally was I got the engine, got the transmission together, I got it in the car, and then it came to all the little nitty gritty stuff, getting a fuel pump, getting lines ran, getting a radiator, getting the radiator back in because it came with a radiator and it came with a fan, and I got all that stuff taken care of, and what else? It just started nickel and diming me to death. I'm not rich. I'm a blue collar guy. I love my job, but I'm just not loaded. It's just kind of the nature of my career. And so I kind of slowly just did what I could afford at a time. You know what I mean? I didn't really want to dump more cash into it. So I kind of piece by piece, week by week, with what the budget would allow, I would buy a little piece here, buy a little piece there, and it just took weeks. I mean, it literally took me months to get from the engine and transit in the car and having all the hoses, all the belts, all the little just nitty-gritty bits and bobs and all the little stuff that just nickels and dimes you to death. And you know, I had to get a log for the carburetor, which was like another $120. And then I got the one I got in the mail didn't have the right AN fittings on it because I have -8 or -10 fittings on the carburetor. So I had to get some more stuff, then I had to get a fuel filter, and then line, and yeah, it just slowly nickel and dime me to death. And so finally, come around November of 2019, I actually stumbled across these tires on Marketplace, and it was like the day before I was going to get it alive. So I quick ran out, bought them, I ran to the tire shop on my lunch break, got the tires mounted and balanced, and then I came home, and that night I fired it up, which I'll probably snip in maybe a video or two of me running it for a few seconds. And man, I was fired up. I was so excited. And around then it was November, so I let it sit in the garage. I kind of monkeyed with it a little bit here and there in the wintertime, and then at about mid-December it just snowed. It was snowpocalypse. It snowed like crazy, and it was just still snowing, and so the car kind of got put on the back burner. And then, so that's, the trailing end of 2019 into the early 2020, and then the world kind of, obviously did what it did, lockdown, everything happened, and my hours got cut, which really dug into the overtime, because I make a lot of the money I make on overtime, because I work 50-hour weeks, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, depends on the week. But, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to have a job a week or 2 weeks or 3 months even later. So I didn't really put a lot of money into it, and it kind of just sat. Sadly, and I'm always like, I got to work on it. My friends are just roasting me like, fix your race car, stop messing around with these shit boxes. And I don't know, man, part of me really just loves just cheap beaters. Cheap $500 Volvos, cheap $500 Tercels. Like, I've bought very few cars for more. I've bought more cars under $600 than I've bought cars over $600, and most of them have been $1,200, $1,400. I think I bought my old red truck for $2,000, and I bought an old white truck when I was in high school when I didn't have any responsibility and bills, and I was like, money's easy to get, for $8,000. And then outside of that, most everything I've either bartered or got super cheap or it smashed, I was able to file a mini tort claim because I wasn't it wrong and got $1,000 thanks to the state of Michigan, and used that money to buy something else that was, you know, in the same ballpark, and that's mostly what I've done. So, finally, fast forward to around now, I'm finally getting it back in the garage, and hopefully I can get it running. Maybe at the end of this little rambling piece, I'll snip in some more pictures that I kind of forgot to get in. I don't really know exactly what all I've discussed and what I haven't discussed. I'm not a great storyteller, forgive me. But, yeah, I guess that's really all I got for today for this video. Hopefully I can get it running in the next video. I'm going to get it cleaned a little bit, not cleaned out. I'm going to do, I'm going to drain the oil, do some other stuff. I got a little distributor tool that I can turn the oil pump and get oil pressure everywhere. I got to drain the oil out of it, and I got to get the transmission shifter linkage dealt with, and a bunch of other little odds and ends. So I got a ton of stuff to do. I think I'm going to double check the brake bleeding and make sure that's all good, and add some coolant and run over everything. And so, yeah, that's really all I got. I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for more of this thing. Hopefully I can keep it going. We'll see. Hopefully this summer I can get it running. I'd love to go out and go cruising with it, bring it to Cars and Coffee, some stuff like that. It's been a car that I've had for... This is actually the longest I've owned a car in probably 8 years is this thing, and it's got the least seat time, which I guess that's how projects of this nature go, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you. Volvo's finally alive. Covered in dust, but...